I am honored to serve as a member of the board of directors of the American Friends of the Open University of Israel, as well as the global director of cybersecurity workforce development at Checkpoint Software Technologies. Joining me today is Dr. Eli Shai Ezatsuo, who is not only the principal investigator of the Neuro and Biomorphic engineering labs, but also holds the position of assistant professor at the Open University of Israel. We are pleased to have the opportunity to interview Ilya Sutskever, a renowned scientist in the field of machine learning and co-founder and chief scientist at OpenAI. As a sponsor of discussions on topics related to technology in Israel and the world, we are proud to support the Open University of Israel, a nonpartisan educational institution and the largest among the 10 accredited universities in Israel. We believe that fostering open dialogue and hearing firsthand perspectives from world leaders on issues related to Israel and the world is essential. And we are confident that our audience will greatly benefit from hearing Ilya's unique insights about the Open University and his professional career. Ilya, it is an honor and a pleasure to host you here with us. Thank you for joining us. Given your expertise, we would like to discuss a wide range of topics related to your personal journey, machine learning, OpenAI, and your thoughts on the future of education. Over the next 40 minutes, we'll explore these topics in detail. Let's jump in. Hi, Ilya. Could you please share with us your initial academic journey at the Open University of Israel and how you became interested in artificial intelligence?
I was in school.
You know, I feel a deep sense of gratitude to the Open University. What happened was that I was in school and doing quite well. Together with my parents, we looked for ways in which I could advance further. The Open University stood out because they accept anyone, regardless of whether they have a high school diploma or not. For this reason, I was able to begin taking courses at the Open University as early as 8th grade, and that was an incredible opportunity. The format was unique. You received books by mail, completed assignments, and sent them back for grading. Then you'd take exams in person. I loved that structure. I could study what I wanted at my own pace. This was all possible only because the Open University welcomed me, despite my young age and lack of the usual credentials for university entry. That sounds like a remarkable experience. Did you rely entirely on remote learning, or did you attend physical classes? There were some physical classes, but they were rare. I might attend once or twice a week. Most of the learning was remote, and the flexibility worked very well for me. The books they provided were incredibly well written, which made the process easier. If the material were less engaging or poorly structured, it would have been much harder. Let's move from the past to the present. Why did you decide to establish OpenAI?
The subjects that I was most drawn on, even as an early child.
A year before founding OpenAI, I was working at Google as a researcher focused on deep learning. It was an exciting time, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with my colleagues. However, I began to sense that the future of AI research would look very different from its past. Back then, AI development was predominantly academic, research driven by small university groups, primarily professors and graduate students. Companies were involved too, but universities led in innovation. Google emulated this structure with small research teams. But by 2014-2015, I realized that AI research was becoming too big and complex for this model. Neural networks were getting larger, requiring more GPUs and engineers, and the infrastructure was evolving rapidly. The scope of work demanded collaboration at scale, which small academic teams couldn't manage effectively. I found myself restless, contemplating how to adapt AI research for the future. Then, one day, I received a cold email from Sam Altman, Greg Brockman, and Elon Musk inviting me to dinner. It was surreal to sit with these extraordinary individuals and discuss founding a new AI lab to rival Google DeepMind. Leaving Google was a hard decision because they had treated me exceptionally well. However, the idea of creating a lab focused on AGI, artificial general intelligence, and ensuring its benefits for humanity was compelling. OpenAI emerged as a way to pursue this mission. Shai Solomon, what an inspiring journey. When did you realize that neural
And I was
networks could
having a
go
lot of
beyond
fun. I
solving
was
narrow
really enjoying
problems
my time
and
at
evolve
Google,
toward general
doing research there
intelligence?
and working with the people, with
The
my
founding
colleagues
of
at Google.
OpenAI itself was a
But
bet on deep learning's potential. We
the
believed
thing
deep
which I
learning could
felt
achieve remarkable
already
advancements in
then,
intelligence if
2014
scaled
and
up.
2015,
Initially, progress
is that the
depended on faith
future
in the
of AI
technology, even
is
when there
going to
wasn't strong
be
evidence. What mattered most wasn't whether neural
much,
networks could generalize
is
across
going to have
tasks,
the,
it
so
was whether they could
maybe for a
perform
little bit of context,
competently. Specialized
AI
systems are
research
only
has
useful if they're
strong
good at
academic
their
roots.
tasks.
Yeah.
Over
It means
time,
that
we demonstrated that
all of the
larger
AI
networks
was done
trained
in
with better
university
methods
departments.
became
It
significantly
was
more
done
capable.
by
At
professors
OpenAI,
with
we
their
pursued
grad
projects
students
like
almost
GPT,
entirely.
Generative
There's also
Pre-trained
been some AI
Transformer.
being done in
For
companies,
example,
but
by training
I would
models to
say
predict the
that
next word in a
for the
sequence,
most
we
part,
found they
the
could learn much
majority of
more
the
than
most
expected.
exciting work
This
came
approach
from
culminated
universities.
in models like
And
GPT-3
then
and
back in the
GPT-4,
day, that was
which
the
showcased
only successful
surprising
model.
emergent capabilities.
And that was
How
also
do
the
you
model that
envision
Google
the
has
future of
adopted,
AI? What
where
can we do
you
to
have
ensure its
an
development
environment
is
that is
responsible?
similar to the university environment.
In the
So you have
short to
small
medium
groups of
term, I
researchers
expect
working together
companies
on
to
a
focus
problem.
on making AI systems more
And already
competent and
then,
integrating
I
them into
felt
the
that that's one
economy.
of the future.
Over time,
Probably the
AI will
future would be
transform many industries,
much
automating tasks and
more,
improving productivity.
much
In
larger
the
and much more
long
organized
term,
engineering
we'll face
process.
profound questions about
Because it was
superintelligence,
clear that
AI systems
AI
that
was going
surpass human
larger,
intelligence.
with
This will
larger neural
introduce
networks and
significant
larger,
challenges around
with more
safety, governance,
GPUs,
and
which in
ethics.
turn means
The
more
stakes will
engineering.
be high, but
This
careful
gets
coordination
very
between
complex. It
developers and
becomes very difficult
policymakers will
for
be
a small
essential
group of
to
people
harness AI's
to do
transformative
something,
potential while
but
managing
a very small
risks.
group of people to
Shai
do it in order
Solomon.
to collapse
Finally, what role do you see AI
universe.
playing in education?
And that was one of the reasons.
In the
And so
near
I was kind of
future, we'll
sitting at
see
Google and
AI
filling
powered
little
tutors become
tests,
widely available, offering
but I didn't know what to
personalized
do about it.
assistance to students.
So I
These
was
systems will be capable of answering detailed
feeling a bit
questions across many subjects and
like a bit of
identifying
anxiety.
areas where students need
And then
extra help.
one day,
AI will also
basically,
redefine what we teach.
like
As technology
like
automates
picture this,
repetitive
here I
tasks,
am
humans will need to
daydreaming.
focus on
I think
being
I was
adaptable,
daydreaming that
learning new skills
maybe I
quickly,
could start
and
an AI
leveraging
company, but
AI
it really
tools
wasn't clear
effectively.
how I would do it. How would you possibly
Closing
get
remarks.
the money for such a thing? That
Thank you
seems
for
really
sharing your
expensive.
journey and insights with us,
So
Ilya.
there was a
The Open
daydreaming
University's
element to it,
mission to
but I
provide
didn't
accessible
really
education and
think
nurture
very
human
seriously
capital
about it because it was
is
obviously
vital for
impossible.
Israel's continued success as a
And then
global
one day I
innovation
received an
leader.
invitation to get
Thank you
dinner
to our
with
listeners
Sam
for joining
Altman
us.
and Greg
Let me
Brockman and
know if
Elon
you'd like
Musk.
further elaboration on
And
any part.
here I am sitting, getting dinner with these amazing people. And mind you, it was a cold email. They just reached out to me and said, "Hey, let's hang out." Essentially,
How did they reach
talking
out to
about
you?
email,
Email, like
just an email. You receive an email and say, "Hey, like we're getting dinner. Do you want to join?"
yeah, it sounds like in that context, it sounds like phishing or some malicious email because it's so extreme.
No, I mean, you know, but it was that. It was definitely not that. It was very clearly authentic, but it was a little bit, for me, it was a small moment of wow, that is so amazing. So of course I went, and here I was at a dinner, and they were discussing how could you start a new AI lab, which would be a competitor to Google and to DeepMind, which back then had absolute dominance. And that was the initial conversation. You know, then it was, of course, for me to leave Google, it was quite a difficult decision because Google was very good to me. It was a very good place to be in. But eventually I decided to leave Google and to join and create OpenAI. And ultimately, the idea of OpenAI is to take the idea of AGI seriously. It's the idea is to take, like, you know, because when you are a researcher, you know, researchers are somehow, I would say, trained to think small. I think researchers, due to the nature of the work, small thinking gets rewarded because you have these problems and you're trying to solve them all the time. And it's quite hard to make even small steps. So you're just focused on what's coming at you, the next step. And it's harder to see the bigger picture. But at OpenAI, we took the liberty to look at the big picture. we ask ourselves, okay, where is AI going towards? And the answer is AI is going towards AGI, towards an AI which eventually is as smart or smarter than a human in every way. And you think about that and you go, wow, this is a really profound, that is a very profound thing. And so with OpenAI, we thought that it made the most sense to give it the explicit goal to make AGI benefit all of humanity. Mm-hmm. Because this technology is just going to be so transformative. It's going to turn everything upside down on its head. Whenever there is such a big change, who knows what's going to happen? So for this reason, the goal of OpenAI is not only to develop the technology, but also to find a way to make it as beneficial as possible, to make it benefit all of humanity. And so the combination of those big ideas and those incredible people that were at that dinner, despite all the difficulties that Google has put in front of me to leave, I still decided to go for it. Yeah. And yeah, it's been now more than 7.5 years, and it's been a very exciting and gratifying journey.
Thank you for being so honest and open with us. We really appreciate it. So, back in the days when people talked about machine learning, it was more about finding, small patterns and maybe find some statistical, a statistical pattern within the data for very specific problems. So you had a model for computer vision, you had a model for language, and you had a model for this and a model for that. But here you are talking about general intelligence. And can you identify the moment when you said, this technology, these neural networks can be used for multiple problems, for multimodal sensing? There can be something that can be general enough. Because back in the days when we were limited by the hardware capabilities that we had, before the age of the GPUs and or everything, it was pretty limited to specific domains. But when was the time that you said this is going to be big? This can get seriously in the field of general intelligence?
To go ahead and start OpenAI, it was a bet on deep learning. It was a bet that somehow with deep learning, we will figure out how to make smarter and smarter AIs. So in some sense, the creation of OpenAI was already an expression of this bet, of the idea that deep learning can do it. You just need to believe. And in fact, I would argue that a lot of deep learning research, at least in the past decade, maybe a bit less now, has been about faith, rather than inventing new things, just believing that the deep learning technology can do it. But now I want to talk about the question, and you said, and why I want to explain just a bit why I think it's not quite the right question. So you asked, when did it become clear that a neural network could be general and can do many tasks, which in some sense is what we are moving towards. But I would argue that this is the less important dimension. The more important dimension is that of capability and competence, rather. Is the neural network competent? You can have a specialized language neural network, or you can have a language and image neural network. But is it actually good? If it's not good, then it's not interesting. So the question is not whether deep learning can be general, but whether it can be competent. And what we are seeing now is that deep learning can indeed be competent.
Maybe you can take us a little bit into your journey in the development of this large-scale neural network that you worked in. I mean, where did you start, and how it was evolved over the years to become GPT-3 and GPT-4?
it's a long story with many interlocking parts. Let's say the evolution has gone. The story of deep learning can be seen as quite an old story, maybe a 70-year-old story. Back in the 40s, researchers have already started to think about the ideas that were later to become the genesis of deep learning. It is the idea of the artificial neuron. You see, the human brain is big in a sense that it has 100 billion neurons. And the human brain is also, at least until or arguably still, the best example of intelligence that exists in the universe. So then you can start asking yourself the question of, okay, so what is it about the brain that makes it smart? Well, maybe if you had a lot of neurons arranged in a certain correct way, you would get intelligence. And so then you can ask yourself, what's a neuron? So biological neurons have lots of complicated behaviors, but the idea that the scientists from the 40s had is maybe you can simplify those biological neurons down to something which would be their essential computation, something which is called the artificial neuron. And it is very simple. It's just a simple mathematical formula. And then they started to ask questions like, what can you do with these artificial neurons? How can you arrange them? What kind of little programs they can run? What kind of functions they can compute? But this was just the first step. This was the first big step. First big step was to invent the artificial neuron. The second big step was to discover how these neurons can learn even in principle. One of the obvious things about human intelligence and also animal intelligence is that we learn. We learn from experience and we learn and generalize, and this is the basis of us succeeding in the world. So how does learning work? It's not, right now we are used to the idea that computers can learn, obviously. But I would say that even in the year 2003, when I started working on machine learning in Toronto, it wasn't clear that learning can be successful. There haven't been really successful examples. And so a very big discovery was an equation of learning in neural networks, a mathematical equation that tells you how to change the synapses of the neural network so to incorporate the experience. But it was just an idea. It wasn't a proven idea. It was an idea that maybe here is a mathematical equation which might have the desirable properties of learning. That was done. That's the backpropagation algorithm. It was done in '86 by my PhD advisor, Jeff Hinton. But then so now you have the artificial neuron and you have the backpropagation algorithm. And it's still an idea. It's not proven. So I would argue then the next big step, and that took, I would say, the 2000s, was to prove that this idea is actually good. And this decade culminated with a few demonstrations of large neural networks, large by the standards of that decade, really, really small by today's standards. But a demonstration that neural networks trained with the backpropagation algorithm can in fact solve interesting, challenging, and meaningful problems much better than anyone could have imagined. And that was one of these demonstrations was the neural network which beat all other methods on ImageNet in 2012, which is a project I was very fortunate to have contributed to. And that began the previous decade, the 2010s, where people would just say, okay, well, let's just tinker with these neural networks and try to improve them a little bit more, and progress continued and continued and continued. But it was all of those. So now I'm going to get a little bit technical, just slightly technical. I apologize. So all the success of deep learning up until this point was in something which is called supervised learning. It's a technicality, It's very familiar to those who are who have some experience with machine learning. But everything was about supervised learning. In the first half of the 2010s, it became accepted that if you have a neural network and you do supervised learning, you will succeed. And supervised learning means that you know exactly what you want the neural network to do. But then unsupervised learning, which is the much more exciting idea that you can learn just from general data about the world and learn everything somehow and understand how the world works without being told, without there being like a teacher telling you what you're supposed to learn. That was not done yet. And then at OpenAI, we had a sequence of projects. The first one was the sentiment neuron. And I want to just explain that because that was an important project in our thinking, where we've shown that when you train a neural network to predict the next word, in this case, the next character in Amazon reviews, one of the neurons in that neural network will eventually represent whether this review is positive or negative, represent the sentiment. But the interesting thing here is that the neural network was not trained to predict the sentiment. It was trained to predict the next character. And so that project validated the idea that if you can predict what comes next really well, you actually have to discover everything there is about the world or the data source. All the secrets which are hidden in the data become exposed to the neural network as you can guess what comes next better and better and better. And think about it, like there is an example which I've used a number of times, which I found that people like, where, like imagine if you're, like an extreme example would be, if you're reading a book and it's some kind of a mystery novel, and on the last page of the book, the mystery is revealed. And there is one place where the name of, some key person is revealed. If you can guess that name, then wow, you've understood that novel pretty well. And so the neural network is trained to predict what's going to come next, to guess. It can't really predict. It can only narrow its guesses and have sharper and sharper predictions. And that led, then the scale up of that led to GPT-1, and then GPT-2 and GPT-3. And then, with GPT-3 in particular, it was a very surprising result because of the really cool emergent capabilities that showed up. And then further work and improvement and scale up have led to GPT-4. So I would say this is how we got to where we are right now. And obviously, the way everyone thinks about neural networks is very different from before. If before it just wasn't clear to people that this stuff works, I think it is very clear to people now. And in fact, right now, we are grappling with questions of, well, it works too well. It's going to be smarter than us eventually. What are we doing about that?
Yeah, so
and that's connected to OpenAI mission of.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for the historical perspective, and obviously you've been in some very interesting key points to the development of neural networks. So it was fascinating to hear from you about it. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit about how do you think the field of AI will continue to evolve and many advances in the future, and what do you think should we do in order to ensure its responsible development?
So my expectation is that the way the field will evolve is as follows. I believe that in the near to medium term, it will be a little bit like business as usual, where I expect that the various companies that are working on their AIs will continue to make their AIs more competent, more capable, smarter, more useful. I expect that AI will achieve a greater integration into the economy. More and more tasks and activities will be assisted by AI. I would say this is the near to medium term. In the long term, eventually, we will start to face the question of AI that is actually smarter than all of us, with a super intelligence. And that starts to bring you into the domain of science fiction, but in reality, rather the ideas that people have speculated about in the context of science fiction become applicable. So at some point, if you imagine a really, really smart AI, that is a scary concept. And as companies that are moving towards it will want to have some kind of rules, some kind of standards, some kind of coordination around whatever it is that needs to be done on the science, on the way that we use those AIs and how they're being deployed, on the way that they are secured, so that we actually get to enjoy this amazing future that AI could create for us if we manage to address all these challenges. So I would maybe phrase it this way. As AI gets smarter and smarter, the challenges, like the opportunity, the amazing things you could do increases, but the challenges will become extremely dramatic. The challenges will become very significant. And I think that everyone who's developing this will somehow be working together to grapple with those challenges, to solve the technical problems and the human problems, to mitigate them, to manage them. I expect that I think that's something that could happen, and I would really like for it to happen.
Back to education, we wanted to ask you, how do you see the future of education, especially higher education, and AI tools and education, how it will impact the processes to digest information, to make it accessible for students or for the teachers. The whole thing is going through kind of transformation now, and would like to hear your perspective about how it will impact the curriculum and the whole ecosystem of education.
Yeah. So
I mean, I can tell you that my kids are using the ChatGPT as an assistant for their studies, but that's just a small example. If you can take it for a broader perspective.
Yeah. So I can talk about the near and medium term, because I think there you can make some educated guesses about what will happen. And I think at this point, it's pretty obvious that we're going to have really good, really excellent AI tutors. It may maybe take a little bit of time to really iron out the, I guess, issues to make it really good and really reliable tutor, but it will be possible. So you could just have an amazing private tutor that could answer detailed questions about almost any topic and help with any misunderstandings that you might have. And that's going to be pretty dramatic, obviously. It's like we go from having and being a student requiring to interact with one teacher and maybe wrestle with books on your own, to having a really good teacher that can help you with the subject matter, right, and answer your questions. And that's very interesting. But and so I would say that this, all the students are obviously going to use that. They'll want to use that. Now, I think a related question for higher education or education in general is what to study, because the nature of the jobs that we will be having will change. And I think that probably being a really good generalist who can study new things quickly and be versatile and be very comfortable with these AI tools, I think that will be very important for the near and medium term. The long term, I don't know, but for the near and medium term, I can make that statement.
So I think now we will switch to Hebrew, if it's okay with you. Yeah?
Certainly.
So, דבר ראשון, תודה רבה, זה היה מאלף ומעניין מאוד, נכון? אז יש לנו מספר שאלות בעברית. שאלה אחת קצת נוגעת בנקודה שהתחלנו איתה את הדיון, אבל אם תוכל רק לספר את זה בעברית בשביל הסטודנטים שלנו. אז השאלה הראשונה זה, האם אתה יכול לספר לנו על חוויית הלימודים שלך באוניברסיטה הפתוחה בתיכון או לפני, ואיך שילבת עם הלימודים פעילויות אחרות, ספורט, חוגים או משהו אחר?
למדתי באוניברסיטה הפתוחה בכיתות ח', ט' וי'. ובדרך כלל לקחתי לא העמסתי את עצמי יותר מדי. בדרך כלל לקחתי 2 או 3 קורסים, אף פעם לא יותר מזה. ובגלל זה כמות העבודה לא הייתה יותר מדי גבוהה. והאמת עוד מה שעשיתי זה שלא דאגתי כל כך לציונים שלי בחטיבה ובתיכון, בגלל שידעתי שמה שאני צריך לעשות זה להתמקד בקורסים של האוניברסיטה. ובגלל זה פשוט לא לקח לי, כלומר כן, הייתי צריך ללמוד, אולי, אני לא זוכר בדיוק כמה שעות ביום, אבל זה לא היה משהו מוגזם, זה לא היה שלמדתי כל דקה שבה הייתי, כל דקה אני חוזר ללמד, זה לא היה ככה, היה לי המון זמן חופשי. לקחתי קורסים שאני מאוד נהניתי מהם, לקחתי קורסים שהם היו מאוד, הייתה להם התאמה טובה למה שעניין אותי ולכישרונות שלי. זה פשוט היה כיף.
אתה יודע, היום כשאתה מסתובב בחברות של AI, אתה יכול למצוא שם פיזיקאים ומתמטיקאים, ביולוגים גם, אנשים שלמדו מדעי המוח, באמת אנשים שמגיעים מכל מיני דיסציפלינות של ידע. איך אתה רואה באמת את המסלול של אותו סטודנט שרוצה לפתח קריירה בתחום של הבינה המלאכותית? איפה היית ממליץ לו להתחיל? איזה יסודות אתה חושב שהוא צריך לרכוש?
אני אענה על השאלה, אבל עם ההבנה שהתחום משתנה מאוד מהר. הייתי אומר לפני משהו כמו, אם היינו מדברים על זה לפני 4-5 שנים, הייתי אומר, צריך בסיס מתמטי, סטטיסטי, כלומר תכנות, וללמוד ולהיות בקיא בדיפ לרנינג. וזאת התשובה שלי היום גם כן. כמות המתמטיקה והסטטיסטיקה שנחוצה והתכנות גם כן, שנחוצים בשביל לעשות עבודה משמעותית בתחום, היא לא יותר מדי גבוהה. לא צריך להיות מתמטיקאי עמוק בשביל להבין את המתמטיקה הפשוטה יחסית שאנחנו משתמשים ב-AI. אבל מה שקורה היום זה שהתחום משתנה. גם התחום משתנה וגם הכלים משתנים. אז למשל, אם לפני 4-5 שנים הייתי אומר שצריך להיות מאוד בקיא בתכנות. אני אגיד את זה גם היום, אבל תכנות היום זה אומר להשתמש בגיטהאב קופיילוט, ומה שיהיה, ובכל הכלים החדשים שיש, ולהיות מאוד בקיאים בכלים האלה. בגלל שהם ישנו ממש את התכנות באופן יסודי, את תחום התכנות. אז התשובה שלי לא משתנה, אבל מה שכן משתנה זה שצריך להיות מאוד מאוד בקיא בכל הכלים החדשים שיוצאים, וממש להיות מאוד, לאגור המון ניסיון, להשתמש בכלים האלה, שתהיה אינטואיציה, איך הכלים האלה עובדים, איפה הם חלשים, איפה הם חזקים, וברגע שהכלים משתפרים, אז צריך לשנות את האינטואיציה. ואני חושב שזאת התשובה שלי, כלומר, בשביל לעבוד ב-AI, צריך בסיס מתמטי, סטטיסטי ובתכנות, ללמוד Machine Learning, ללמוד ולנסות לאגור ניסיון פרקטי, לאמן רשתות נוירונים, וגם ולהיות יצירתי, בגלל שהכל משתנה כל כך מהר, אז יכול להיות שאם נסתכל על הסיטואציה באופן קצת אחר, יהיה אפשר לשים לב למשהו, ואז ללכת על זה, לבנות משהו מגניב. יש המון דוגמאות שאנשים עושים דברים מדהימים באופן סורס. מדהימים, בגלל שאנשים באים באופן יצירתי, בלי דעות קדומות, ובונים משהו שימושי. ואני חושב שזאת דרך טובה. אבל עכשיו, בגלל שהכל משתנה מהר, אין מסלולים שאני יכול להגיד, תעשה את זה וזה 100% יעבוד. צריך להיות מאוד מהיר על הרגליים.
אתה יודע, היום נתנו דוקטורט של כבוד בפעם הראשונה באוניברסיטה הפתוחה לדיקנית הפקולטה לרפואה באוניברסיטה העברית. ואחד הדברים שהיא עשתה, שבאמת היו מאוד משמעותיים גם עבור הפקולטה לרפואה, זה שהם פתחו מסלול חדש, זה מסלול של רפואה חישובית. ולמעשה אלה סטודנטים שלומדים תואר שלם ברפואה, מסלול מלא 7 שנים all the way, והם עושים גם תואר במקביל במדעי המחשב. ואחד הדברים שאתה היית מצפה, זה שהיית אומר, אוקיי, אולי אלה של הרפואנים הם לא צריכים לרדת לעומק של מדעי המחשב. הם יכולים לעשות איזשהו קורס בהיי לבל, ללמוד קצת דיפ לרנינג, מה המודל, ולהסתפק בזה. אבל היום יש איזושהי תחושה שרופא שמשתמש ב-AI צריך להיות בקיא בכלים של מדעי המחשב, כמו הוא צריך להיות בקיא בתהליך הדלקתי שקורה בגוף, או בתהליך הפרמקולוגי שעובר את תרופה. כלומר, הצורך של ידע במדעי המחשב, בתחומים שמשתמשים בו, הופך להיות משהו מאוד מאוד עמוק. כאילו זה הופך להיות מצב שלהבין בינה מלאכותית זה חשוב כמו שאתה צריך בשביל לדעת לקרוא או לכתוב, או בשביל להבין איך העולם הזה עובד. מה דעתך על התנועה הזאת?
להיות בקיא במדעי המחשב בשביל להבין את ה-AI זה מאוד שימושי. באותה מידה אני חושב מאוד חשוב לפתח אינטואיציה על היכולות של הבינה המלאכותית. מה היא יכולה לעשות, איפה השגיאות, איפה אפשר לסמוך עליה ואיפה אסור. זה מאוד חשוב בגלל שכשאנחנו חושבים על מערכות, למשל מערכות רפואיות, אפשר לחשוב על ה-low level, איך בונים אותה. אפשר לחשוב על ה-medium level וה-high level, מה היא יכולה לעשות. האם אנחנו יכולים לבנות, האם זה משהו ששווה לבנות? כמה טוב הוא יהיה, מה הסיכון? וכן, הבנה הוליסטית כזאת, זה משהו מאוד טוב ושימושי. אני בטוח שיש המון הזדמנות לעשות fine-tuning, לבדוק כמה בדיוק מדעי המחשב, איזה חלק ממדעי המחשב הוא יותר שימושי פה ואיזה חלק פחות. אבל באופן כללי אין ספק שבינה מלאכותית, כן, רפואה, medical care, ישתנה לחלוטין. יש לך בינה מלאכותית שנותנת לך, עונה על כל השאלות הרפואיות שיש לך ועושה לך את הדיאגנוסיס, אז זה יהיה מאוד משמעותי, וזה בטוח יקרה. ולכן מה שחשוב פה זה לא רק להסתכל על ההווה, אלא גם להסתכל על העתיד. בגלל שבהווה יש לנו בינה מלאכותית שיכולה לעשות משהו, יש לה איזושהי יכולת. אבל נניח תוך 2, 3, 4 שנים, היכולת שלה תשתנה, וכל מיני השערות שיש לנו, למשל, שמשהו ספציפי בלתי אפשרי, ולכן צריך איזה מערכת או איזה תהליך בשביל להתגבר על המכשולים, על הטעויות של הבינה המלאכותית. ייתכן שבעוד מספר שנים זה לא יהיה נחוץ. ולכן אני חושב שמשהו מאוד חשוב כשאנחנו חושבים על מה ללמוד או מה תהיה השפעה למשל על התחום הרפואי, זה לא רק להסתכל על הבינה המלאכותית של היום, אבל גם לדמיין שהבינה המלאכותית תשתפר, והיא תהיה יותר חזקה, והיא תוכל לעשות יותר טוב. אז אני חושב שצריך לא לשכוח את זה.
אנחנו עובדים עכשיו באוניברסיטה הפתוחה על פיתוח תואר שני חדש במשין לרנינג, ואחד הייחודיות של התואר הזה, זה שיהיה אפשר להיכנס אליו בכל מיני נקודות מוצא בשלב האקדמי שלך. כלומר, אתה יכול להיות סטודנט למדעי הרוח, או סטודנט לכלכלה, או למנהל עסקים, ואתה יכול לעבור איזשהו בוטקמפ כזה מסיבי, ולהיכנס לתואר השני הזה במשין לרנינג, ובאמת איכשהו לנסות להבין איך אתה משתמש בטכנולוגיה הזאת, בשביל ההבנה הבסיסית הזאת שקנית בתואר הראשון שלך. ומעניין אותי באמת לשמוע את הפרספקטיבה שלך כבן אדם שכן עשה מסלול של תואר ראשון, שני, שלישי במדעי המחשב, מול אנשים שהמסלול שלהם הוא לא הולך ב-all the way in במדעי המחשב, אלא הוא מסלול קומבינטורי יותר. מתחילים במדעי הרוח ועוברים למשין לרנינג. מתחילים כפיזיקאים ועוברים למשין לרנינג. אתה מוצא בזה ערך, או שאתה מוצא בזה איזשהו משהו שאולי מוזיל טיפה את הדבר הזה שנקרא AI?
באופן כללי, בגלל ש-AI יהיה כל כך, ההשפעה של ה-AI תהיה כל כך עצומה, לא יהיה שום תחום, אין שום תחום שלא יהיה ממש, לא רק מושפע, אלא turned upside down, בגלל ה-AI. מדעי הרוח, מדעי החברה, הכל. כל מה שאנחנו עושים, ה-AI ייגע בכל והוא יהפוך את הכל. ובגלל זה, לדעתי זה מאוד טוב להבין כמה שיותר את מה שקורה, מה בדיוק קורה עם ה-AI. אבל אחד הדברים שאני ממליץ, אני חושב שיש שני דברים שאפשר להתמקד עליהם. אפשר להתמקד על ה-foundations, מהו הבסיס המתמטי, הסטטיסטי, מה זה Deep Learning, איך זה עובד. זה מאוד מעניין. אבל באותה המידה אני חושב שנורא חשוב להשקיע זמן אמיתי, להבין מה הן היכולות של הכלים שיש לנו היום. מה שאנחנו רואים עם כל החברות שבונות מודלים גדולים, דברים כמו ChatGPT, מי שמתכנת, חייבים להשתמש בגיטהאב קופיילוט, ממש חייבים, בגלל שזה העתיד, זה העתיד של התכנות. איך זה נראה היום, להבין, לא לשכוח איפה זה היה לפני שנה, ולנסות גם לחשוב על איפה זה יהיה עוד 2, עוד 5 שנים. אז לדעתי כן, לדעתי זה מאוד שימושי, ואני ממליץ לא לשכוח, ממש לנסות להבין איך ה-AI של היום עובד, מה הוא יכול לעשות בדיוק, לפתח אינטואיציה. לדעתי זה חשוב באותה המידה, כמו להבין את הבסיס, כמו ההבנה של הבסיס הסטטיסטי והמתמטי, הבסיס היסודי של ה-AI. והסיבה לכך, בגלל שרוב האנשים לא יבנו AI בעצמם, לא יהיו מהנדסים שישבו ויאמנו שתות נוירונים, אבל הם כן ישתמשו ב-AI, והם כן ינסו להבין איך AI יכול להשפיע על איזשהו תחום שקרוב אליהם. ובשביל זה יהיה מאוד שימושי וטוב להבין מה היה יכול לעשות, לפתח אינטואיציה. אני חושב שזאת אינטואיציה מאוד חשובה.
איליה, המון תודה על הזמן שהקדשת לנו ולסטודנטים כמובן. זה היה מרתק. רוצה להוסיף משהו?
לא, ממש תודה על הדרך שעשית ושהקדשת זמן עבורנו, ואנחנו כמובן מחזיקים אצבעות ל-OpenAI שיצליחו לקחת את הדבר הזה קדימה, ומה שדיברנו היום על ה-Responsible Development, אני חושב שזה אחד הדברים באמת היותר מעניינים שקורים היום, שאיכשהו המושכות עוברות לתעשייה מבחינת זה שהן צריכות לקחת על עצמם את האחריות על הפיתוח של הכלים הכל כך חזקים האלה. אז אולי בדקות שנשארו לנו, אתה יכול לשתף אותנו אתה מרגיש איזשהו כובד של אחריות שיושבת על OpenAI מבחינת מה שהדבר הזה יכול עוד לעשות, ואם אולי מתישהו צריך קצת אפילו להגביל את תנופת הפיתוח עד שהרגולציה והדברים סביב מתחילים להסתדר.
הטכנולוגיה הזאת, AI, היא כל כך עוצמתית, שהיא ממש תהפוך הכל על הראש. כל הדברים שאנחנו עושים היום כבני אדם, AI יוכל לעשות. אם לוקחים את זה ברצינות, זה משהו שהוא לגמרי לא מהעולם הזה. וההשפעה על החברה האנושית תהיה עצומה. זאת אחת הסיבות שבגללה רצינו שהמטרה של OpenAI זה לא לבנות את ה-AI, את ה-HEI, אלא לבנות אותו באופן שיהיה beneficial כמה שיותר לאנושות. בוודאי שאין לי ספק שיבוא יום שבה הטכנולוגיה של ה-AI תהיה עצומה עד כדי כך, שכן, כל החברות שהן בחזית ירצו איזושהי רגולציה, ירצו איזושהי דרך להגביל את הטכנולוגיה ואולי לעשות משהו שיעט את הפיתוח שלה, בגלל שנרצה שיהיה לנו יותר זמן לעבוד על בעיות טכניות קשות, אז איך לשלוט על טכנולוגיה כזאת, או איך לשלב אותה בתוך החברה, בגלל שאם הטכנולוגיה מתפתחת יותר מדי מהר, אז זה שוק. אז אני בטוח אני לא יודע מה יקרה בדיוק, אבל אני בטוח שיהיה משהו לא סטנדרטי, יקרה משהו שלא קורה בדרך כלל שחברות מפתחות טכנולוגיה. וזה יקרה בדיוק בגלל הכוח העצום שיהיה בתוך ה-AI.
בסדר גמור, תודה רבה איליה.
תודה רבה איליה.
שמחנו מאוד לדבר איתך ולהכיר אותך.
שיהיה לך כמובן המון בהצלחה. תודה.
תודה גם לכם.
אתה כמובן מוזמן לקמפוס, אתה אורח כבוד, ומתי שתגיע לישראל, אז נשמח לארח אותך פה בקמפוס, בתל אביב.
ביי איליה, תודה.
Thank you Ilya for taking time out of your very busy schedule to be with us today and speak about your journey and the evolvement of OpenAI. Let me add a word to your comment. Although Israel now has some natural gas, its key resource remains its human capital, and it must continue to invest in it in order for Israel to remain a global innovation leader. Higher education in particular is the critical investment needed to enhance Israeli skill set and its ability to innovate. In that regard, we see the Open University with 53,000 students, by far the largest of its 10 accredited university in Israel. With nearly 40% of its students studying STEM, the Open University is by far the largest educator of highly skilled talent into the Israeli innovation economy. Educating perhaps 1/4 of all STEM students studying across all Israeli university, and with 80% of students at its Open University being first generation in their family to attend university, including many who came from geographical and social periphery of Israeli society. It is also broadening the pie of who can access higher education, and thereby in parallel addressing some of the Israeli demographic and social challenges. Among Israel's most vital institutions, the tremendous positive impact of the Open University on Israeli society is invaluable. I want to thank you, our listener, for showing your commitment to Israeli and the topics discussed here today. Thank you all.